Welcome to the Occult Rejects. We're coming back at you with another true crime episode on the Riley Strain case. Since the last time that we all got together, and there is a chance that William Ramsey will be joining us. He might be a little bit late, and I'm hoping he does make it. He's got some slides to share. But since then, obviously, if people are following true crime, a Riley Strain has been found. So we're going to be talking about a little bit of that, and I guess stuff on the bank card, and maybe some of the people that are popping up, I guess, in public's eye due to this case. I got JJ Vance, my boy, on with us today. JJ, say what's up and let everybody know where they can find you in case they don't know who you are yet.
Howdy, folks. JJ Vance, host of the Operation GCD podcast. I popped it there on the screen for help folks out. Nick, I appreciate the invite back. Lisa, great to join you as well here for another Smiley Face Killer conversation. Well, not great to join y'all for a Smiley Face Killer conversation, but if we have to discuss it, then yeah, let's have that conversation. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting developments here in this Riley Strain case. And last week, well, just over a week ago when we discussed this last, it was still a very developing situation without him being found. And I think a lot of the stuff that we discussed in that conversation, came to fruition, relative to the quick time frame in which his body would be recovered because of the high volume of media attention, social media and regular media attention. And then also some of the other elements that transpired since then, like finding a personal item near the riverbank.
Yeah.
That plays out time, and that's a pattern that plays out time and time again with other cases, other victims, where then it implies to all the search parties, well, hey, we're going to find this guy. He clearly fell in the river is what it implies. And time again, just like this case, the police immediately call, no foul play was suspected. They find no criminal aspects to the case, and they immediately are calling it an accidental drowning. So, that's kind of all the same stuff we discussed last time. And sadly, it came to fruition again with this case, as we all expected. But yeah. Looking forward to the conversation. Hopefully, William Ramsey can join us. That'd be great to have him here too.
Yeah, I would like to. I hope he does make it. And thank you for jumping on. And we got the mad scientist. What's going on, Lisa? Thank you very much.
How's it going? Good. I'm glad to be here. Very excited to discuss this topic.
Yeah. I would even say just the chat itself that we had going in Twitter was exciting.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that, like, in all actuality, we probably could just go through that and talk about it, and then be like,
and
I was going to say,
yeah.
No, I was joking, but I was
even laid out chronologically, kind of too, like in the whole discussion. So
we totally did. Yeah, just published that. Yeah.
That's why I was saying that, because I was like, this really is going in order as us like looking into things and adding.
Yeah,
like, this is pretty funny. Right. One thing I did want to actually cover, and I'm going to take care of this first. Plus, I wanted people to check it out. I knew if I left it for the end, I'm sure half the people would shut it off. But a while ago, I had gone to Nashville, and I actually had recorded a bunch of stuff. I probably mentioned this on the podcast numerous times. And I never really got around to making it. And then I started filming Yale, which I'm still working on that. And hopefully we'll actually get that out by this summer. But I did have a lot of stuff in Nashville, and I just never got around to making it. And I guess because of this coming up, once I realized, actually, when I started looking into this case and looking at where like Luke's 32 was, I was like, I was like right over there. I was like, and I remember the first day when I actually went into Nashville, when I was out there, I went with a bunch of people, and so I didn't bring my recording equipment with me then. I did bring it to film, but when I went, I remember like as soon as we got over the bridge, there was a few things that we saw, and I was like, there was tons of occult symbolism on this stuff. And I even thought I noticed it throughout town too, like on the buildings. Like some of these are old buildings that now have like different businesses that are in them than they were originally. So I mean, they still have stuff on them. It's really interesting. So the next day I ended up like walking over the bridge and filming a bunch of stuff. And a lot of this put it this way, then, I was much more out of shape. I had just literally probably 6 months prior got done with like a back fusion, and I had to like relearn how to walk. So, I wasn't in the best of shape. And if I was able to walk over the bridge and go walk through town with a camera, 2 cameras, I'm sure this is not like a long walk. In my opinion, if you were to look at the map, you'd see that all these things are probably within like a 5-block radius. They're very close to each other. So I ended up putting together, it's a little bit long. I'll try to get through it as quick as possible. It's about 16 minutes of footage that I have from like a bunch of different buildings that are all in that area. And in my opinion, when you see all the symbolism that are on these buildings, and then we finish up at the Masonic Lodge, I think when you start to notice all the same architecture being shared by all of them, you may start to get an idea of who actually runs that town or that city. Because I think it's them. If you see, I mean, the government buildings, museums, all the same architecture. I think it's all saying, we built all these buildings probably around the same time, or at least did. I definitely think there's something there. So,
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong there, Nick. It's all a very ancient Greek themed. All the architecture is there, right? Like they have like a very almost like they're recreating some of the elements of ancient Greece there.
That's what I had thought. And that's actually another thing I do want to mention real quick for the people that will be catching this, because I'll be dropping this soon. I won't put this in rotation. Me, Headless, and I think Lisa will actually be covering this video footage again, but not based on the crime, and actually doing kind of like a documentary on the buildings themselves, the history.
Oh, nice.
And me and Headless will go over the occult symbolism, and he's really good with the Greek stuff. So this should turn out pretty well. So like before you even walk over the bridge, I mean, you're going to see the UBS building is right there. I mean, not for nothing, but I mean, they kind of does look like the crossroad keys symbol that they use. Sure. I mean, as you're crossing a bridge, which is very kind of occult in itself, Masonic, but I wouldn't say Masonic, but like, bridges are used a lot. Taylor Swift has actually used bridges in her videos that I think are showing occult symbolism.
Is it like some sort of rite of passage or something? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, well, it's also crossing the abyss. I think it's a little bit like the star card. I think it's all really representing the star card in a sense. And this is all the court building before I even got over the bridge. I was filming this.
Some sort of Lady Liberty, right?
Yeah, which looks a lot like a Justice Tarot card, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I might actually make this.
I will say one thing, that when you shot the angle of the bridge and looking at downtown, that looked identical to Congress Street in Austin.
Oh, okay.
Well, which is interesting.
This is the first time
it's laid out the same way.
Yeah, who knows?
I apologize for the horrible job. I didn't even have a stand with me either. I had to carry this thing and hold it.
Well, that's the library, huh? Or is public? Oh no, public building.
Courthouse. Yeah,
courthouse. There we go. Okay. Oh, so what was the one with Lady Liberty on it then? That wasn't the courthouse?
That's on the other side though. It was on the other side.
Is there one, like one's a state courthouse, maybe one's a federal courthouse?
It was on the side of the building. I just didn't.
Oh, I see. I got you.
It made me think that there is a theme because it repeats: lion, bull, snake, or I'm sorry, lion, snake, bull, and then lion, snake, bull. Almost like a pattern.
I'm almost wondering, tell you the truth, like I had mentioned before, the snake. No, I'd be wrong. The snake throws it off. I was thinking of kind of like the World Tarot card too, but no.
What's interesting about that snake, it's not a rattler, it's a pit viper with a narrow head. And then that bull is wearing like a head armor, like to go into war.
Now, Nick, how far away from the Capitol is this? Is this area?
I don't even know. And this is actually.
Did you make it over to the Capitol area?
This is actually built in a square too, I think, or it's called the Square, the town square, some shit like that. Something square.
Is that the snake elevator?
Yeah, it's outside the court buildings. This I thought was interesting. I really didn't get good pictures of them. I thought I did, but like I could be wrong. But these things on the wall, a lot of them I actually thought might have been different versions of birds. I thought it might be like a falcon, an eagle, and a hawk. You'll get kind of an idea when you maybe here.
They do look slightly different, don't they?
Yeah.
Yep, I see what you're saying. Yep.
Yeah.
We got these mofos up in there.
Yeah, who's that guy? Is that Moses?
He's got a ledger or a scroll with him.
Yeah.
Even that thing on the side reminds me a lot of like an Egyptian headdress and other things I've seen. Even like trees of life and other ways. We got a couple more here. Got that one.
This one stuck out to me because she's standing on top of a snake.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost honestly kind of like I mean, if that was on a horse, it'd look a lot like Russia's flag.
That's true.
Got some boobies there.
I'm glad they put in a skirt for her. It might get cold. Looks like it's cold. Sorry, I had to say it.
And this is the customs house.
The customs house. So
Yeah.
It's like a Gothic cathedral.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
just not for regular processing.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure they repurposed this at some point in time. There's no way the customs folks built this, I feel like.
No way.
I'm not trying to get too Tartarian on this conversation or anything with this kind of structure, but you go down that weird rabbit hole. But yeah, customs house, this is an odd building for sure. Wonder what year that was built.
Well, you know, when I was in Yale, some guy came up to me when I was filming and stuff. I guess maybe he thought I was important because I had a big camera on my shoulder and I was filming something. I don't know. And he asked me, he's like, you know, how old is this building? I said, I don't know. I said, I'm just literally filming it because of the occult architecture on it. And he actually did pose a good question. He was with somebody and he's like, I'm trying to tell my friend, he's like, just because the date on the building might say 1875 doesn't mean the art was done then.
That's true.
He's like, it could be newer. He's like, it could be maybe, you know, well, let's say that it says, you know, it's from the 1600s. Who's to say it wasn't done in like the 1800s? Who the fuck's still around to even say, no, that was originally there? You know what I'm saying?
They say it was built in 1876. So.
Okay. And it was built for this purpose?
It was actually designed by the architects of supervising architectures. And it originally housed the post office, district court, and the Middle District of Tennessee.
Weird.
So it's like an office, like a national.
Yeah.
It's also listed as the National Register of Historic Places.
No, it's a pretty wild structure for sure. Yeah. I mean,
I don't know. They would have gone all that way.
I want to kind of stress
Greek pillars to it.
Yeah, I want to kind of stress just like some of the things, like you'll see a lot of these fleur-de-lis type things here on the peaks. You're going to see
that,
a lot of these triangles pointing up. I do think you'll see that somewhere else. And even like just a lot of these like circular things. You'll see that played a lot.
That 4-petaled flower we talked about that with the Lady of Guadalupe, how it was very important to the Aztecs and it meant fertility.
Yeah. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them, I even think if you look at them a certain way, I'll point it out later. It's like I could see it almost being, again, looking like a snake.
Okay. Yeah.
Like going up the neck and then the head. I'll show you on some other things. It's just like I could see
on these fleur-de-lis ones you're talking about.
Yeah, or like could even like almost look like tongues, as weird as it sounds.
Yeah, it's quite a structure. Oh, there we go.
And it is a federal office building. So,
yeah.
Let me keep going. I don't want to go too much into that stuff. See, even stuff like that, just like shapes like that and stuff, it's like very much like the neck or a head of a snake in a sense. Not saying that that's actually what it is, but I do wonder about like, is there something going on with that artistic kind of display? Well, this stuff right here, if you think about a lot of Robert's flood drawing, to me, that even looks like it could represent a fucking ladder, actually.
Yeah. Or the spinal column.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I see.
Like, I do think these things could actually have like multiple things to them.
As well as a seashell. you know, the Orchestrated, the sea shelf Aphrodite, that she sits in the clamshell.
Yeah, I mean, if folks are taking that long to construct these things, I would hope they have more than just a, you know, they have some sort of utilitarian purpose to them. They're not just there for the building block. They have some occult understanding or you know, purpose behind some of this stuff. Because again, this is quite a structure. You know, this was not something that was like this is quite a project to undertake, especially at that time.
Mm-hmm. And it's made with limestone from Kentucky, by the way.
Now here is also it's called the First Art Museum, and it's something else too. I might notice it with the name on the building, but it has. I mean, this is what it's called now, but it has had multiple things associated with it. Again, to me, this is just like more pine cone symbolism.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought too. Pine cone.
Yep.
Well, nice eagle.
That eagle reminds me of the Nazi one, the one that was standing in the back.
It kind of does, right?
Yeah.
Is that the federal? Is that a federal building? Well, that's the art museum.
Yeah.
Still okay.
But I have to see. It was something else too. It even says it on the building. I was hoping I'd notice. See, like right there, you saw those same almost designs on the court building against the door. Remember, I said it almost even looks like an Egyptian headdress.
Yes.
You're seeing the. In my opinion, we're seeing the same artistic flair and all this shit.
Yeah, for sure. There's like the seashell pine coney type situation there too.
Little crest there, I guess. Sticks on the side.
Mm-hmm. Looks like a shield.
I almost even wonders if those like fascist bundles.
Look like tulips.
The wheat?
Wheat, yeah. Uterus with the fallopian coming out.
Okay, yep.
It's also the something Schermerhorn Symphony Center. This is on the front of it. Was it Cerebus right there? I'm probably screwing that up.
Well, that looks pretty wild.
First thing I thought of when I saw it was Three Dog Night.
Well, nice. I see the dogs there. Yeah. What is that? Is it
an owl and
in
a
the middle?
snake. Say that again. Yeah, harp. It looks like it. Owl and a snake there.
Yeah. Oh, I see the owl. Yeah.
You see, it's like extending its wing around the snake, like embracing the snake.
Yeah.
And seashell at the bottom.
That's interesting.
Chains around the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look how good that camera is. You can actually pick up the bird shit on the things. That's what you pay for, is that 4K 20 times zoom.
That's hilarious. It's funny.
I noticed that stuff. I was like, I actually thought the footage came out horrible, which is another reason why I didn't really get on it. I was like, this is actually better than I thought. Because I had no idea what I was doing then.
Sure. No, without a standard tripod, I mean, that's a pretty steady picture too. You're shooting.
Dude, there was stuff I threw out because like my arm was shaking and I was just trying to record, and you'd actually see it vibrate.
Yeah.
It's funny how the lion has his paws upside. And then this owl with its foot outstretched. something to
You know,
do
there's
with
a lot
feet.
of that in tarot where someone's foot is always put out.
We see the lion, how his paws are upward and not laying down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you caught that. That's actually, I didn't notice that. This is Betty May. She graduated from Hume Fogg High School in George Peabody College before moving to New York to work as a model and actress. She became one of the most photographed pinup models of the 1950s and retired from public life in 1957. Page became an evangelical Christian and maintained a reclusive lifestyle, though she developed an underground cult following and was hailed as a feminist icon prior to her death in Los Angeles in 2008. Interesting. The thing up on the top even kind of reminds me of almost like some like cuneiform like thing, or right here.
Mm-hmm. Is that the county seal?
That is the Historical Commission.
You got the fleur-de-lis on that as well.
Yeah.
Of Nashville and Davidson County. Got that.
Looks like a castle.
Yeah.
Did you see how good that shit looks from filming it from across the street? I'm across the street, I think. I think the shit was way too high that I was like, if I try to film it from here, I won't get the right angle.
On the furthest right side, that's the alembic, the alchemical apparatus used by Mary the Jewess and Cleopatra.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, see, I didn't recognize a lot of those symbols going on in this building. This is a pretty wild structure, too.
See, now look. Same triangles again.
Yeah, I was going to say those do look exactly the same, yeah.
Same triangles again that was on the other building.
Yep. Same Gothic appearance to the archways and everything. They got the little Greek pillars going on here, too.
I found that interesting. That's their thing. Instead of 3 keys, now we got 2.
Hume Fogg, huh?
Yeah.
This was built in 1912?
Or maybe the team was. I have no idea.
Okay. You know, the keys on this emblem and then the keys on the USB building, the US UBs, whatever.
UBS, yep.
UBS, they both have M's on their keys.
Interesting.
I didn't see that. Yeah. Now, something I had even noticed before we even get into this, and I really do think there's something behind this. When I went to Yale, and people will see it when we cover Yale, and I may literally actually film more stuff that really isn't associated with the secret societies, just to maybe give this visual. But when you go to the secret societies there, these buildings are plain as shit. There's nothing on them, nothing to make them look exciting at all. I'll tell you the truth. People will probably be like, oh, wow, that's what Skull and Bones looks like. Like, I wouldn't even notice if I were pissed. But right around them, there's always like these churches or these buildings that have the most craziest like architecture and occult symbolism all over. And I really do think it is more of like kind of like they're the cube, possibly, and everything else is like the graven images. In a sense.
Okay.
I just do find it interesting.
You
how
think there's a occult purpose for this?
Yeah, and then everything else around them is like off the hook with imagery. I just find that interesting. Because I even think with this building, as we get to it, there is some stuff on it, but it's probably really all not that much compared to everything else we just looked at.
And this is the Grand Lodge for the whole state, right?
Actually, tell you the truth, I couldn't even. Could be.
Well, yeah, because this is the capital city, right?
Yeah, it should be then.
Yeah.
Nashville is the
Oh,
state seat, isn't it?
I'll say there we go. Lafayette's true. I was going to say I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this town was founded by the Society of Cincinnati, dating back to actually kind of before the society's start, because this was actually the first white folk in Nashville. You know, in the Western, modern history tells us is French fur traders, which was kind of the in the same family trees as the French side of the society, and Lafayette being the general of that side.
One thing I do want to set straight, since I saw Corey saying it in the chat, I didn't attend Yale. I just happened to be visiting there to make a documentary. It's the way it hell I was
Nice.
getting into the place.
But yeah, that's interesting that Lafayette was here at this specific lodge.
Yo, this thing right here is wild. You'll see later that depending on which way you look at this thing, those shapes in the middle make a whole bunch of different designs.
Interesting.
Yeah, depending on how you spin around, it starts to change.
There's the Society's double eagles right there. I was going to mention it with the other double eagles on the other building, but that's a Society of Cincinnati right there. That's one of their common symbols is the double eagle.
To me,
Now,
it's
in a
the
sense,
eyeball.
I know that they had two wings each, but that first art museum, if you think about it, it did have two eagles both placed like that.
Right? Yeah, yeah. That's what
together, but
I'm saying. It's not always the same bird. Sometimes it's separate birds and they're looking in opposite directions. You'll see that a lot of times. For example, also in Nashville, you'll see that over at Andrew Jackson's, member of former president, member of the society, via his military service and his status as the president of the United States. But there at the Hermitage, on the kind of on the north east side of town of Nashville, you'll see a lot of those double-headed eagle symbolism throughout his estate there as well. But yeah, you're right. Like it shows up as either two birds, two eagles, one looking left, one looking right, or the double-headed eagle as you saw there.
That's major eye symbolism.
That's what I think.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, with the Ora Serrata, or it could be an iris as well with the pupil.
That's what I think a lot of those designs actually are when you see them on the buildings. I really do think it's actually pointing to your eyeball.
So it looks like this specific double eagle might have some unique significance to this lodge, or
Scottish Rite,
or the Scottish Rite. I was going to say, or the Scottish Rite in general. Yeah, okay. Yep.
Chat's on fire, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Sorry, I haven't been able to
No, you're good. You're good. They're just calling. They're on it. Just wanted to acknowledge that out loud.
See, I just think even though there's not much here, you're still seeing the same circular things that we do think is part of an eyeball. A lot of the fleur-de-lis, a lot of the same, like almost like leaf-looking or floral-looking designs.
Yeah, again, I'm not too shocked with the fleur-de-lis stuff, given the French history of this town. But it is interesting how you're right. All these buildings have the same, unique symbols, shared across a lot of these buildings here. Because those seashells, they seem to seashells, pine cone kind of, mixture. I'm assuming there's some sort of occult significance to that.
Even something like this, I have wondered, is that also significant to tongues?
You know what that reminds me of? I know it's a PG show, but it reminds me of a nipple. It reminds me of the fertility of milk, like the land of milk and honey, and then the tongue and the nipple, breastfeeding.
Even in the Toth deck, I think the Hermit, there's a tongue being used. I've even wondered, like, could that even go back to sometimes why you see certain gods with their tongue hanging out, especially Kali.
Sure. Well, I mean, I don't think it's an unreasonable interpretation, especially relative to the group of folks we're talking about here who constructed this area of Nashville with these symbols, because it's the same group of folks who like to build giant obelisks, so they seem to have some sort of sexual fertility cult aspect to their whole situation. So I don't think that's an unreasonable interpretation, Lisa.
And even these things, it's like I could see that turned into a snake if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And you have 8 petals and 8 dots. So there's the whole 8 thing all over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of an odd little shield with some circles inside of it.
Yeah, that's it. And then there's other ones with stuff in them.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yep.
I guess we'll go into this with headless, but do you know what those are on the edges? The symbols? Okay.
No.
I saw the word perfection. I know the Masons are real heavy on that word.
It took me probably like 5 hours to make this without even like going into researching anything. So
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Oh, sorry about that.
It's all right. Now look at it now.
To me, it looks like the visual system.
Oh, I see what you're saying with the different shapes depending on how your perspective of looking at it.
Would that also be a hexagram?
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, not for nothing. It's very close to a unicursal hexagram, actually. To be honest, this is what it is. Or sigil of Saturn.
Interesting.
So more like beast or tiger type symbolism.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering with those legs, huh?
It's Bigfoot. Bigfoot spotted in Nashville. And then here we go. Some live entertainment. Now I just wanted to show. This is where Redneck Riviera. This is where this video footage is coming from. It's literally around the block from Luke's 32. So, and like, this is how I want to show, like, you're going to see again, same shit on other buildings.
That's not too far.
That smells like Teen Spirit playing in the background.
Yep.
Those look like owl eyes.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Like the Nirvana soundtrack you had on the last clip.
I did too.
Yes, yeah.
That was a good ad, though.
They ended up doing a song that I actually I threw it. I think I erased it, but I ended up like recording one of their whole songs. Actually, that band wasn't that bad.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Figured all you heard was country in that town.
There was another one where I recorded the whole thing, and they did that. Whatever, you know that song where the devil went down to Georgia, whatever, and they had like a fiddle player or someone playing something. It was pretty off the wall.
Charlie Daniels.
Charlie Daniels, yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Yep. That's a great one. Now, my experience in Nashville is like they play the same list of country songs, like every bar you go to. Like that's been my experiences in Nashville. Like, so you hear the same set list from different bands at different bars, but it's like the same, like approved set list of music. I just thought it was funny to hear the Nirvana one there.
But
that's some interesting architecture there for sure, Nick. I mean, like you're right with the similarities between all those buildings, and they're being built at different times. There's obviously some sort of plan to that, right? I mean,
I definitely I definitely think there is occult symbolism down in that area. I definitely think it's sort of maybe stems from like Masonic stuff. But again, I guess
just up the hill from there.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, what were you going to say? That's fine.
Oh, I was just saying, just up the hill from there is like the Colosseum area, where there's like kind of like built after like the Greek Colosseum, I think, and that's like the original kind of French outpost of the Nashville was built upon, and the original French outpost there was built on top of a mound, an ancient Indian burial mound, if you will. So that is the history of the town of Nashville. It literally was started on top of a mound.
So it's another mound.
Oh
Really?
yeah, that's where the Capitol building there is right at the Bicentennial Mall Coliseum like area or whatever they call it there, not Coliseum. There's a Greek. They built it after some Greek site. I can't remember which one it was now. But anyway,
Parthenon?
There we go.
I was going to try to get there.
Yep.
And I actually didn't realize I was a little bit of a ways. I was going to.
It's not like right now the same area. Yeah, it's like up the hill.
It's like I'm going to spend $50 in an Uber to record this shit, and like fucking 200 people are going to watch it and not give a fuck. I'm not spending the money on this.
So yeah, that area is where the that was like the original site, and like that the original like French outpost, trading outpost there was built on top of a mound. That Capitol building's on top of a mound. All right, so a number of those sites along the riverside, they're also built like where you were just filming. That's also heavy mount. Like I don't know if that specific Masonic lodge was built on top of a mound, but I'm assuming it was, right? Especially given its location down by the river. Like for example, even in recent years, they're still building stuff on mounds in Nashville. The football stadium across the river from there, from where you were just showing some of those videos, the NFL team, the Titans, they play in a stadium that's built on top of a mound. So again, these things are still going on today with building things on top of mounds. However, that whole town started, again, very Society of the Cincinnati origins, including origins dating back before the society's existence within the French side of that society and some of those families. So long history of mound stuff going on around there.
Well, I do like I have seen some interesting stuff with this case, even though I'm not really I guess as well versed as I should be. But I do think there's quite a possibility, again, if it even goes back into Smiley Face Killer stuff, if this is one of those types, which it does fit, kind of, I guess.
It does.
The way it goes. Stuff that we've been looking at, or that I've even been looking at myself. It's just there is always like some sort of Masonic connection, and then like political stuff or like police, and it's just I don't know. I do think that might be quite possible that if there wasn't an occult reason, maybe people in occult orders were involved, quite possibly.
Sure. No, look at the Delphi situation, right? That the more the stuff that comes to light in that whole circumstances surrounding that investigation, where all these hours of the initial interviews that were conducted the immediate interviews conducted in the aftermath of those murders, deleted. There's written reports saying like, oh well, these are what we discussed in those videos. So people are like, the officers are supposedly based on their own memories, writing down like what was discussed in those interviews with the suspects, so they could write whatever they want to write when everything is deleted. And given the clear cult group that's associated with that case, it seems to be well documented throughout the politics and law enforcement. And at least it's implicated that members of politics and law enforcement involved in that whatever cult is going on there. You can call it Odinism or whatever. I don't think it's necessarily Odinism per se, but some variation of those belief systems. But nonetheless, it seems to be integrated within the power structure there within the state of Indiana and impacting that investigation as a whole. So I really wonder oftentimes where some of these occult groups meet the political, law enforcement political power structures within certain areas. And I think Smiley Face Killer, victims kind of fall within that same category as this Delphi situation, where those cult groups seem to be, in my opinion, impacting these cases, because otherwise there's really not a reasonable excuse for a lot of this activity that goes around these cases where the law enforcement either just plays just completely dumb, like they're just like, oh, well, we're new and we don't know what to do, because they're obviously not new and they obviously do know what to do. For example, within the Riley Strain case, they don't call dogs in for 3 weeks. I'm sorry, not 3 weeks. 13 days, nearly 2 weeks. So I mean, they know what to do. They know to call dogs in prior to 13 days. So somebody is impacting that decision not to call dogs in. My assumption, based on all the available information that I've seen and reasonable circumstances that you would expect to transpire in these when someone goes missing, like call on the dogs. That's like a pretty
Immediately.
early step in their little checklist, right? So like there's some power, organizing principle of power that's impacting these decisions from being made to actually do these investigations properly, and that's just one example, I think. The deleting of all the interviews in Delphi, the not calling dogs out in Riley Strain circumstances here of searching for a missing person. It just seems like, I'm retired law enforcement from all of my experience in the military, but the military is big on checklists, generally speaking. But law enforcement loves checklists. Like, there's a checklist for everything. Like they don't like, oh, we got a missing persons event. Okay, well, step one, calling the dogs. It's not like if they're not calling in the dogs, they're like, oh, nice. How you doing, Desert Rain? So they're not calling in the dogs. They're like, someone's intentionally skipping that step, and it's written on a piece of paper for them to follow. So it's not like they have to remember it. But yeah, so.
Well, and there's been somewhat of a change of hands a little bit in Tennessee, or in Nashville. Apparently, there was some to do with the DA, and there's been some drama going on back since even 2017, 2019. I believe there was a press secretary that was asked to resign a day after the new guy comes in. Then I believe it was in here shortly, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation walked into the DA office and confiscated everything, all drives, all computers or whatever, and accused him of illegal wiretapping. And so they confiscated the whole thing. What was interesting is that, and we'll get into this a little later, is some of these girls that are associated with finding Riley's debit card were asking for Tennessee Bureau of Investigation to step in, or asking the family to demand for TBI to step in versus the actual police force that was currently there at the time.
And
so it's
what do you
interesting.
think? What do you think the impetus behind? Sorry to interrupt you there. That's a good point, Lisa. Like,
No.
So what do you think the impetus behind them doing like these TikTok advocates, as they're called? Because I obviously think they have a lot. I find these characters to be totally suspect in their activities, their statements, their actions. Kind of the whole gambit. But what do you think the impetus behind them saying we should get the TBI in here? Is it just to confuse the investigation even further, or cause some chaos in the reporting of like, hey, make the public think that the local authorities aren't doing their job properly? Like, hey, we got to call in some other people, or sow discourse, in the conversation.
I do think that there is
Discord.
that undercurrent narrative in these places where these bodies are turning up, that the current local PD is not doing enough or not doing their due diligence. That is not debatable. We know that, we see it, we read about it. It's ubiquitous.
Yep.
But it seems like, especially one of them in particular that you see in the video, standing kind of inserting herself into the presser, where one of the PDs, I don't know if he was a police chief or something, is talking. She was the one that was mainly calling for the TBI, but also she has had lots of experience with TBI, as well as the Nashville police, as well as inserting herself in other cases that have been high profile in Nashville. So it seems a little suspect that you're just like, okay, this is nothing new for you. You kind of know how this goes. You see pictures of her in courtrooms, and not to say that people should not get involved in their local community. That is not at all what I'm saying. But when you start to go back and start retracing the steps of these people, take, for instance, like you brought up, the girls that were involved with finding the debit card, you start to see that they are somewhat internet celebrities. And I think Nick has kind of mentioned this a lot, is that true crime is now the new reality show. It is now the new money-making scheme. And so
I
a way
really
to,
really do.
yeah, a way to make money, a way to promote yourself, a way to become famous, insert yourself in true crime. But how better way to insert yourself into true crime, into these extremely popular events? Um, so if you want to get into the video
Well,
or the live or whatever.
yeah, well, Vitance, can provide a quick counterpoint to there. That's a good point there, Lisa. We were just talking about this last week, though, right? We're talking about true crime folks inserting themselves into the investigation, or not necessarily folks who could potentially be involved with the crime, but inserting themselves in the true crime community, inserting themselves into these investigations. And I'm not saying that these folks are necessarily involved with the crime. However, in my opinion, they kind of exhibit the hallmarks of the people we've discussed being involved, right?
Mhm.
Music industry folks who, seemingly are inserting themselves with these, magical, in my opinion, magical discoveries of this debit card. The riverbank was so littered with trash. Even the folks who found the debit card commented on how littered with trash it was and how amazing it was that they found it. And as you pointed out in our Twitter thread earlier, they're kind of just like lumbering, milling around the riverbank, like, oh, look, there's a debit card. And like, oh, look, it says Riley Strain on it. Like, oh, how amazing. It's almost like it was, planted there. I mean, even the way you watch it, this doesn't look genuine. Nothing about it screams like this was something that was genuine. Then you look at the characters, they're actually involved in reality TV shows. They're actually involved in reality TV shows on true crime. So, I mean, these elements are already like, I'm not saying that we were right in our assessment or previous conversation. I'm just saying elements of that conversation have played out in this case with Riley Strain, and I find it creepy.
Right. Right.
Wait till true crime shows on YouTube start getting involved.
Yeah.
Okay, like
Yeah,
literally, I guarantee you that's gonna happen eventually. Because there is my opinion, like just from how I've noticed it and picked up on it. I really do think a lot of it has to do with monetized YouTube channels. I really do think that's a part of it, and I think another thing is that because I really do believe that some of these crimes, not even so much this, but like Kohlberger, Kylie Rodney, certain ones that I do think have an actual occult undertone to them. Nobody's ever really talking about it. Even people who in my opinion, it'd have to be Ray Charles could see that they're occultists, but nobody ever wants to look at them like that when you've like fallen in love with the character they're presenting to you on the YouTube channel. There's a lot of occultists, in my opinion, that you see covering true crime, and it's always like the same crimes, and it's like they seem to like really captivate. And like I really just think that that's like the whole part of the thing. Like they're taking advantage, I think, of like kind of like riding the wave of like what's going on due to somebody else's work, I guess. You know what I'm saying? I think they know how to cash in. I think they know that the public has been captivated already behind because of the people originally behind the crime. They've already captivated the public and already set the stage for the story. And now you're running with the story. It's a play. They know for a fact this is a play, and I'm going to run with it, and I'm going to be like try to be my own director of how this crime is going to get solved.
No, I think you're onto something there.
Who are doing that, in my opinion. It doesn't necessarily mean they're involved in the crime, but I mean, in my opinion, it's quite blatant. And like some of them, and I'm not knocking them or because I'm jealous. It's just some of them are actually like very well respected kind of in the conspiracy community. It's like you don't see like all the mods have like sigils and occult symbolism as logos. You don't realize this dude's a little fucking weird. It's like, when your mods have like Thelema fucking, they literally have the tattoo that's on my fucking arm. And like some of their mods have this shit. I mean, I could walk into the premiere or a live and say 93 and I'd get answers back. That's how fucking blatant it is. Do you think they're going to let the guy that the video has up fuck up a tarot card? No, he's not that dumb. He's just good at playing stupid. People are being mind fucked and captivated, and they're making a fuck ton of money out of true crime. You have channels out there that are holding up their. If I get 100,000 fucking subscribers one day, I think you get like something from YouTube. That really doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't say much. It just says I have subs. You know what I'm saying? People like my shit. It doesn't actually have to mean it's good. You have people holding up these plaques actually claiming that they got this because of their true crime investigations on YouTube. People believe this? Yeah. They know that there's people out there due to, I think, reality TV and due to conspiracies that are like so hard up for an answer to something. They'll believe a lot of bullshit. And they take advantage of people, unfortunately, that are looking for something really hard.
Yeah, I mean, you're making some good points. I think there's definitely a monetary gain from a lot of these things. And there's, what you're saying makes sense to me. There is occult undertones to this. The other occultists would kind of glob onto that. However, in this circumstance with Riley Strain, it seems far more like orchestrated, and I can, organize. There's a far more organized look to it. Because, for example, the two individuals that found the debit card are friends with this individual who inserted himself into the press conference with the Smiley Face Killer's phone cover. By virtue of their own admission, these people all know each other. Yeah. Right. So like that in and of itself is very creepy to me, that they're admitting to knowing each other, and they're playing important parts in this case. Because important, for example, the debit card on the riverbank is very similar to so many other cases, victims' cases beforehand. For example, out of the canonical cases that come to mind, Adam Falcon in New York, they're upstate from you there, Nick. He his personal belongings were found near the riverbank. Couple of the cases out of La Crosse, their victims' personal belongings were found near the riverbank while they were missing, because then that way it implies that this person went into the river, right? Mind you, there Riley Strain here in this circumstance, it's a debit card that looks clean amongst a bunch of trash, right, on a riverbank, a dirty riverbank, which that in and of itself, like, it's not buried in mud. Right, it's just kind of there. That in itself is questionable. Yeah. What's that, Lisa?
I said it was kind of like leaf litter again. Like you see it over and over. It's leaf litter. It's debris. It's not too terrible to search through, but it is a lot to search through.
Yeah, for sure. And like it's definitely muddy down there. You'd think there wouldn't be just a spotless, clean debit card sitting there, right? Like. It's clearly been there for, at that point in time, roughly a week, right?
Yeah.
Since he's been last seen.
So to your point, Nick, when you were talking about it being somewhat scripted and a play, I mean, what better yet, you're live streaming while you're looking for the debit card and you find it.
Right.
Are you kidding me? And the three people that are live streaming, one of them has worked with Paramount, the CW, Hulu, Lifetime, and A&E. That's one of them. The other one that found that, according to the thing, that did find the debit card was on America's Got Talent. Then the other one is a musician whose boyfriend is also a musician.
That's the Swiftie.
And it just keeps going. Yes, that's the Swiftie. Yes.
Well, I think that's even stranger, because she has this connection to Nashville from when she was living in Wisconsin, and some sort of like super Swiftie fan or something, so like number one fan of Taylor Swift or whatever. And like, there's already this weird connection to Nashville with this character. It's very odd, the whole background there.
And if you watch the actual live stream, which I did several times, there, and I've trekked, I've hiked, so I'm no stranger to any of this. When you're hiking through this stuff, obviously you're having to watch your step and whatever, but you are definitely not combing. Or how's this? You should be combing if you're looking, right?
Right.
There was no combing. There was trying to maintain balance. There was trying to kick things over to see if there's anything under. I think at one point, one of them had a stick and was flipping things over. How are you even going to find a card this big in all of that? And then all of a sudden, the camera's facing away and the girl's yelling, "I found it," and says, "Oh, I have to hang up. We found it," because we're going to call the police immediately. Now, I'm not saying none of this is real. I'm not saying it is. It just seems very scripted.
Oh, for sure. Very. No, it's a great analysis. It does seem very scripted, and it brings into question, how did the card get out of the wallet? Where did the wallet go?
Oh, and that was the other thing.
The statements of the searchers. Oh, go ahead.
They were looking apparently for his wallet. This is, I guess, the whole premise of it. But they found the debit card. I think so.
Wallet and shoes. Yeah, that was their statement. Yeah.
And that they found it directly where it could have fallen had he been at that point in the bridge where he was last seen.
Yep.
And it's like
It was
another magic
literally like
bullet
right down the
with
embankment,
JFK.
right? Like
Yes,
they had where the
yes.
phone pinged where he was last seen, and then like literally like right there, like, oh look, there's his debit card. But
And
again, like why
apparently
would he have his debit card out?
that
You know,
place
like,
had already been searched. Again, and
oh yeah,
I'm not negating anything. I'm just putting a critical eye to, meaning that these people want fame. They love fame. They're in occupations that bring them fame. All of a sudden now you're in the situation where all eyes are on you. It just seems a little contrived for,
it seems very contrived. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, again, because the circumstances don't make any sense. They're not finding his cell phone. They're not finding the wallet. I mean, the guy's just pulling his debit card out, saying, "I don't need this anymore," and then throwing it on the riverside, and then then jumping in the river. I mean, again, the whole you can't put that into a context that makes any reasonable sense. There's no, there's no way to really, you can do a lot of mental gymnastics around the discovery of this card, but none of it makes any
and
sense. But yeah.
and the amount of money that's being generated, like in the actual, excuse me, sorry, the actual GoFundMe. I mean, it picked up when they found, I think, the card, and then they picked up again when they found,
Sure.
Riley. And I think it's like well past 70 grand or something.
This
I
is
think
his
it's awesome.
family's.
Like last week.
This
Do
is his
what?
family's GoFundMe. Who's GoFundMe?
Well, the GoFundMe that I looked at or that I found was one, I believe, for the dad.
Okay, because there's the parents are divorced.
Yes. So apparently, I
Okay.
think there's two of them, but I couldn't
Is that
find
how
that.
much that Cajun Navy charges to come and help? I mean, it's still, I think about that. I mean, $60,000. I mean, that
was
should be getting a lot of people walking that river.
Well,
that's another. They were part of the Cajun Navy, weren't they? These girls, or they were affiliated, or they were asking for the Cajun Navy.
yeah, I don't know. It's very kind of, there wasn't a clear answer on that. I think they just globbed on. They're like, hey, the Cajun Navy's in town. We're gonna
Okay.
start searching too. I mean, there's a lot of just various parties searching, obviously, and I question again. I question the organizing principle with these people because, as you point out, you got the three reality star folk, kind of musician folks. Then you have the other individual who inserted herself or itself or their self. I don't know if it's as a female or male. I question that looking at some of the history of this individual. However, they inserted themselves into the press conference. It was completely disrespectful during the entire press conference. Made sure they got into view of the cameras, then berated the police chief and presumably the commissioner or some other, figure of authority there in the law enforcement community in Nashville. Follow them to their car. Yeah. Angrily, making like kind of just gesticulating, arm and hands, in an angry fashion towards the guy as he's closing his door and like, hey, we're done with this conversation. And they're obviously upset, right? Like it doesn't, like it's not a normal, like, there's nothing respectful about the person's appearance or the way they're carrying themselves or the way they're communicating with the police. And this is again after they kind of like, almost like a very disrespectful, satirical fashion jumped into this press conference where the police chief's describing, it's the first press conference, right, where he's describing they've recovered the victim's body. And again, this individual has the smiley face phone cover or smiley face, symbols on their phone cover, and then tells reporters, hey, I know these are the people that found the card. Well, how do you know each other? Like where's the connecting principle with all of these parties? Because this individual is, as we confirmed with the licensing board within the state, looking it up, is in fact a nurse. So I mean, it's they're not a reality star. They're not a musician. How do they know each other?
Yeah.
How does this person get to know the other parties, and why are they all involved in this case?
And I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm not saying this is what happened. And this is just my conspiracy going off on a tangent. But if I was a bartender and I was the one that served him the drink that ended up causing this fiasco, and he never cashed out, and my prints are on the card, all of a sudden I'm joining that search committee.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah, I mean, it does.
I mean,
bring into question, did he leave that card at the bar? Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, granted, that's not an accusation. That's just,
I'm not sure anybody knows because no one's reported whether or not he left. It is reported he got kicked out of the bar. It's my understanding that he was kicked out of the bar based upon the recommendation of a female who regularly hangs out at that bar, told the bouncer, said this guy's got to go, and then that's when they kicked him out. That's the circumstances surrounding his departure from Luke's 32 bar that seems to be a point of fact from my understanding. So if that's the case, whoever that female was that told him to get out, whoever that female was that told him to get out of the bar, told the bouncer to kick this guy out, the regular, as it's reported, she should be questioned as far as what's her role in all this, because it sounds like a lot of times especially with the heterosexual victims, they're let out of the bar by a female. This is time. There's numerous instances where that's occurred. So in that same vein, that same female bait, if you will, for the victim could just simply be acting in that same capacity by telling the bouncers to get that guy out of the bar. Either way, you're getting the guy out of the bar, regardless of how you achieve that goal. It's just another way to achieve it. I think that's important here. That's an important factor that's been overlooked, right? They say immediately no foul play is suspected, but I don't know. That seems pretty suspect, right?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think so. And again, it was one of those where I think they said that he was kicked out of the bar, and then they wouldn't allow the people to go with him because then they wouldn't be able to come back in. Now they're saying that somebody went out there with him, made sure he was okay, and then he was able to come back. I don't know. And I don't even know that, I mean, from what I understood I don't know if it's changed now, but when you are refused service, they don't kick you out. They just tell you, we're not giving you any alcohol. Sit there and here's your water and shut your mouth.
I agree. That's where it sounds like this female bar patron seems to play an important role with getting Riley Strain out of the bar.
Because the last thing you want,
he texts too.
That seems to be a different third party. So there's so many different unidentified third parties involved in this that, again, no one's even paying attention to. They're just like, let's move past that.
Well, the one that he texts supposedly says they were friends, but not in like a relationship or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah, that seems
they're in a situationship is what they called it. Yes. But
it seemed odd because was that person on the phone leading him into the direction on the roadways where he was going? Because that seems to be a question mark too. Like, why was he going in the way he was going? He seemed to have intent of he didn't seem to just be kind of like, he was obviously inebriated. He ran into some stuff. I've been there. I've done that plenty of times. I've navigated plenty of cities running into things and whatnot. So, I understand those things happen, but he's not like meandering about lost. Like, he has intent of wherever he's going. That's the way I perceive the video images, the surveillance images. Like he may not be going where everyone expected him to go, like to his hotel, but from what I see, he's going somewhere where he has a destination. Like, he knows he's going somewhere. Like, I wonder if this third party, this other female on the phone with him, who may have been leading him into somewhere, to his demise. Because again, no one's looking at these other details. The individuals seen on the surveillance footage at the building, I saw someone post earlier, the Birch Justice building, in the comments on the screen, the Birch Justice building. That was where the surveillance camera was that picked Riley Strain up. Those are the last known images of him. That's just on the other side of the bridge from where his phone stopped pinging, where his card was found. Right. Yes. So you have other individuals in that same image, that same video footage from that building. You have vehicles in that footage. You have a bicyclist in that footage. No one's questioning any of these kind of people. Like, hey, what were you doing here? What did you see? Because again, those seem like the number one suspects if any foul play did occur here.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think to what, and Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, to Dana's question, I think what they're using or what they've started confiscating a lot in these college towns is BDO, right? Or
yes,
what is it called? Yeah, which
once GHB.
So once it metabolizes, and I believe it's harder to trace, and they're not testing for it because it's new, or not new, but it's the new thing. But
it's almost like trying to get around the testing, then, right? Like they're like the perpetrators of the crime are trying to skirt the detection of the crime.
But I don't know if there's a difference in the pharma grade. I don't know. But again, if again, I don't know if they're releasing that information to the public, that if they've been picking up that stuff or if they've been selling it or anything like that. I do know that Austin has experienced an explosion of different types of farm grade drugs. I couldn't tell you what kind. That's just hearsay.
Is this like bathtub chemicals? Or they, like the folks are cooking them up, kind of like a meth lab kind of deal?
Yeah, I think you have a lot of manufacturing going on out on the outskirts.
Yeah, I mean, it seems preposterous. Like, you'd think that if victims are being drugged with something like GHB or some sort of, chemical precursor that folks are cooking up in a bathtub, you'd figure law enforcement would cue into those things. But again, it goes back to somebody's telling law enforcement not to look at these details. And La Crosse is a great example of that. La Crosse, which is a hotbed of Smiley Face Killer victim activity, they actually had around the same time. So maybe a lot of their victims were like, nah, I think 2000 to 2004 timeframe is most of the activity in La Crosse. Well, I think it was 2006. They had an enormous bust of the manufacturing of GHB in La Crosse. Like, I'm talking like, I don't remember the exact quantities, but it was a lot. It wasn't a little bit. And like no one's like, hey, I wonder if the folks making the GHB and these kids that are getting drugged with GHB and murdered, I wonder if they're, these things are, connected
Related.
at all. No. Yeah, no one's asking that question. And La Crosse isn't a big town. Like, when you have someone making gallons of GHB and kids getting drugged and murdered with GHB, no one's asking that question still. So, I'm sure no one's asking about this precursor either. Like, that's probably like, that's not even on the radar of any department.
No, I don't think I've even heard it on the news. You hear it when in Austin, you hear it on the local news, they did a bust and it had X, whatever amount.
Yep.
And GHB was always in there. A list of it.
What is a big party drug, right?
I believe so.
I mean, clubs and stuff like that. That whole
I think it's the new
scene.
thing with the raves and stuff like that, and they take it with a conjunction of something or another.
It's definitely a rave drug, because I remember.
I remember that back in the day. Yeah. I remember I've mentioned it before. God, it's not the same person that everybody's gonna think. It was DJ Kiyoki though. Back in the day, I mean, he was kind of like trance, like tech house.
Yep.
And he played a lot. He was actually God, remember that story with the rave kids? Macaulay Culkin, I think, played in a movie about it.
Party Monster.
Yeah. Macaulay Culkin even mentioned something about like, oh, my birthday we'll have DJ Kiyoki play. Like, the guy was known in like the club scene, and I think he was playing. He was playing somewhere, and somebody I knew was like close to him. So we were able to like kind of go up on the thing of whether he was playing, and like, there was motherfuckers up there just like drinking that shit like crazy. He was DJing.
Really?
They had like bottles, and they were just like squirting it like in each other's mouths and shit. It's like,
yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty prevalent in that whole community. Yeah, like the rave scene. Yeah, it seems pretty aggressive though, drinking it like a water bottle, because that stuff's that's a pretty potent drug.
That seems to be prevalent in these cities where you're seeing the same MOs, especially with Austin. Austin, I know, is a huge rave scene, underground tunnels and stuff like that they go into. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the other community that GHB is big in is bodybuilding, and that's what when we were talking about planning our other Smiley Face Killer discussion we're having here in the future with BD. One of the cases there was Joey LaBute in Columbus, Ohio. Oh, nice. Yeah, and I think he's a great example of kind of that where those communities clash, because he was seemingly going to like, he was a gay man going to like that kind of club scene within the gay community there in Columbus. It seemed like within the bars that he was frequenting there, and it was also he disappeared. He was seemingly kidnapped the weekend of the Arnold Classic, which was the big bodybuilding tournament there. So, I think that's a good case study in trying to see where the club scene and like the bodybuilding scene, where those converge within the GHB druggings of folks, because whatever went on with Joey LaBute was seemingly a kind of a crossover with those communities.
Yeah. No, for sure. And those areas, I know, like in Austin, those areas like Rainy Street and 6th Street are offshoots of where you can get into those tunnels to do those raves and stuff like that. So
Oh, interesting. So
it's
that's
all in
frequently
that same centrally area, and it's right near the river. Yeah, it's all centrally located in that area.
that's a frequent party scene is underground there, huh? Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Now, were those kids who ended up in the river there? No one has said. They've never said, oh, they were at a rave. They always say they were either at Rainy or they were either at 6th. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering. And so, like all those kids or all those young adults that were seemingly murdered there in Ladybird Lake, the official excuse was they all were, they were all urinating in the lake and fell in the water, right? Like that's kind of the whole storyline with each one of those, right?
Yes. Accidental
I'm
drowning.
wondering accidental drowning. They just fell in. I wonder if that's because they haven't really said with Riley Strain yet. Like, there's not been an official narrative, right?
No.
But I'm assuming that's what they're going to come out and say. Like, hey, he must have just been taking a piss in the river and just fell in.
For the last time I checked, they said something of no foul play, and they do think it was accidental, and that they were waiting for the tox reports to come back.
Right. Which those are all pretty standard statements by law enforcement.
Right.
But I think the most interesting thing to me about, at least with the search for Riley Strain, was, again, they called the dogs in 13 days afterwards, right? So that in and of itself, I think, is suspect. But I think I think that cued the discovery of the body, right? Like, as we discussed in the conversation last week, the media attention was going to cause the body to be discovered sooner. That just based upon historical examples of these SFK victims. And that's exactly what occurred here. But so I think that the 21st, right? So he's found on the 22nd, the morning of, I think it was 7:30 or whatever. But the 21st is when they had the Cajun Navy really stood up, in their search as far as helping out. So you had more significant increase in the search party. You had the dogs that came in on the 21st, and then you also had the law enforcement officials announcing that they're going to be nowhere near the area where the body was later discovered, right? So the body was discovered in an area that was already searched. That's very common in these cases. And they also announced, like, hey, we're going to be somewhere else, right? So, like, while the authorities have announced we're going to be somewhere else, folks go back and put the body, somewhere they've already searched. And that's what's happened here. So that oh, nice. Yeah, there are cameras everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
There's no doubt about that.
That's actually something I could even mention that I think I may have taken it out just to limit the time. But there was, like, even cameras that I focused up on some of these buildings. Like,
I saw that in some of your footage. Yeah.
Buildings, there's cameras all over there.
Especially for government buildings.
And, like, honestly, those core buildings, really, if people know where they are, I mean, that's like up and then like a little bit more down. You're kind of like where this kid was walking here.
No, for sure. Yeah, I saw some of those cameras in your footage. There's no shortage. So on the 21st, like, just close out my point there, put a bookend on it. So the 21st, authorities are like, hey, we're going to be 40 miles downriver at the dam. So no one's going to be concerned, like, where the search party is going to be, because the body was located 8 miles. So the law enforcement's 32 miles further downriver. I think that's good, important to focus on for two reasons. One, because that way the perpetrators of the crime know they can go dump the body and get away with it. And two, it also shows that law enforcement knew that if that body was in the water, it would be 40 miles downriver by now or close to it. They knew it would be down by the dam, right? They were closing off the dam. That way they could search the everything that was coming up from underneath, from the riverbed. That was their intent for doing that. That's what they announced, right? Which makes sense if they thought it was that far downstream. However, clearly it wasn't, but it should have been, right? Had he gone into the river 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks prior to they found him, his last known sighting on March 8th, by March 22nd, he'd have been probably past that dam, given the rate of flow.
I think so too.
River and everything, but the bare minimum, he would not be 8 miles away from his last known location. And again, the circumstances surrounding his body in the water is already suspect, if you ask me. For example, the police chief announced the individuals, the employees of the local business there along the riverway. He said they moved an object, and after they moved the object in the water, he said he didn't know it was a barge. He didn't know what it was. That's weird, right? Wouldn't they tell you, like, hey, we moved this barge and this body just came up? So it tells me that the body was already floating. It was just floating underneath an object, allegedly, right? So if it's already floating, that tells you how long it's been on the water. Like, yeah, you can start determining a lot of things of how long that body's been in the water just based upon the status of it floating and looking at the decomposition and whatnot. Which they've not. I don't think they'll ever. This is one of those cases where if they report on the actual decomposition, it's going to be evident that that body wasn't in the water for the entire time. I go back to Joey LaBute. Joey LaBute was in the water roughly 21 days. Now, the Columbus Police Department in Ohio actually said, like, look, we're going to leave this as an open investigation. I think it still sits as an open investigation today, undetermined cause of death, because they immediately knew that body should not be floating and should be severely decomposed after 21 days. And I think that's going to be the same circumstance here. He didn't die in the water. That's why he's already floating, because he never went through the whole cycling of the gases in his body.
Or swallowed water.
Yeah, and that's going to be evident in the fact that he was already floating, and the fact that the decomposition is not going to match.
And the MO
time and time again, it's the same thing.
Okay. And the MO is usually that their lungs are underweight, not even normal lung weight. Usually, if you ingest, I think there's a variation between salt and fresh water in terms of weight variations within lung capacity. And then, obviously how big you are, male, female, all that other stuff. But on some level, you have an increase in weight of lung weight if it's taken in a substance of water or something like that. With some of these autopsies that have been put out online, you see them underweight to even normal lung weight, which vastly disproves the whole accidental drowning thing. And the fact that they're floating.
Some of them have no water in the lungs.
Right. Which means they were placed in the water prior to.
Yep. So again, that's another reason why I think, good possibility of why they'll never release the circumstances or autopsy reports surrounding this publicly, because given the way they discovered the body and again the time frame, the location, everything, it seems to me that this man did not die in that water at all, even in drowning. That he died on land somewhere and was dumped. Again, this is something that's occurred with numerous victims that has been documented by the original detectives, Gannon and Gilbertson, there in their textbook. One that comes to mind is Patrick McNeil, one of the original victims there in '97 in New York City. He had fly larvae, and it had settled in his groin area. So they obviously knew immediately that didn't occur in the water. He died on land. And I think again, there's going to be another telltale sign with Riley Strain that the public's just not going to hear about.
Right.
Because no one heard about Patrick McNeil for 10 years or 12 years or something like that, like before any of that was released.
What's interesting is that usually, to your point, what's interesting is these cases rarely get a whole lot of publicity. It's a blip on a local news, and that's it. This one is big. This one has reached, I think, lots of news outlets, national as well. And so of course, all of a sudden you think, okay, why now? Why is this one particular case being put out in front for everyone to see and cry over?
Yeah, that's a good question.
The other ones were not, worthy of the same publicity. I don't know. It seems scripted. The other thing, and I cannot confirm the validity of this, but when they found his body, that he was missing pants, but he still had the shirt on.
Right.
I don't know if that's
pants
true.
And boots, apparently.
Yeah. So again, if you're floating in the river, hence why you wouldn't have a cell phone, because you don't have pants on.
Yep. I mean, he's not the first one to be found with those circumstances. A lot of times, I don't know. Did they report on his Apple Watch? Did he have his watch? Because I mean, a lot of times, the victims are found in various, states of undress. Depending on, not necessarily just pants and shoes. Sometimes they're found with their pants off and their shoes on. So that's even more mysterious circumstance. But I don't know that I don't know that there's been any reports that any of his belongings were stolen or thought to be stolen. Of course, maybe a cell phone was lost in wherever his pants were lost to. Who knows? But and same with his wallet. But the watch would be interesting to me, because these victims are never robbed And one of the ones that comes to mind with a watch, that's a good point. Yeah, there was a case out of not Cincinnati, but across the river from Cincinnati, back in like 2002, and that guy had like a $10,000 Rolex. His name was Lon Dowdle. He had a $10,000 Rolex on his wrist still when his body was found. I think his case is very similar to some of these other cases, because especially Riley Strain, Lon Dowdle, that is, he was a member of a fraternity in college. He was out of college, but it was his fraternity brothers that came to search for him in his disappearance. Riley Strain was another fraternity member. He was out with his fraternity brothers. I honestly don't know how much they were involved in the search. I don't know that I saw a lot of reports that they were deeply involved in the search. So that's kind of a red flag to me, because of how these fraternities operate and how they take care of their own. However you want to consider taking care of, you know what I mean? Because I think that goes either way with these fraternities.
Yeah.
But
understand when it comes to these. I mean, again, maybe they're doing it in different ways, and it might cost more. Maybe because this has to deal with water. I don't know, but when you get a lot of these crimes, especially this one, I even thought when these girls were showing how they found their stuff, I guess it all depends on the area and the time of day. But if you've raised up all this money and like you're supposedly spending it on people to go search, like how come you're actually never seeing on the news? Now we have in the past, but you never anymore really see on the news these search parties. Where are all these people that are actually getting paid to like walk the river? Where are these people that are actually really looking for this shit? I don't see anything like that. But yet it's happening and this money is being spent on it. But you don't see that televised at all.
No.
You would think they'd show, like, back in the day, they'd be having helicopter shots of the people walking the fucking shore trying to find this kid. Not anymore. You just get TikToks and YouTube solving the case now.
Well, I question where that money's going with those GoFundMes, and I think it'd be fairly difficult to track down, because I don't know that you have to really identify who you are to start a GoFundMe, right? Like, there's no. Like, you could say you're raising it for Riley Strain, but you're like, no one's verifying that. There's no auditing process, right?
Yeah. JJ, I have a question for, like, in terms of investigations, police, crime scenes and stuff like that. Would you allow people to go walking up and down areas like this? Just
that's
rando people. Like, wouldn't you corner it off or something and just wait? Bring out the dogs, let the dogs have first dibs.
Exactly. Yeah.
How are you letting just every TikToker down out there?
That's a good question. I think it goes back to speaks to like who's telling these law enforcement organizations to act in the way they're acting, because step one is identifying it as a crime, right? So you would cordon off the area if you were identifying that a crime may have occurred here, but they're not identifying a crime may have occurred. And secondly, they're so lackadaisical about their normal protocols for searching. I think normally you would not want random TikTokers going in there and without first having the dogs go through there and first having your own people go through there first. That would be standard, right? That's a good point. But it goes back to like someone's telling these people to abandon normal protocols and go do these very questionable search procedures and allow people like that. Donations can be traced. That's a good point if they can. I mean, because I really wonder a lot of these GoFundMes, because like what do they really? I mean, outside of obviously raising money to help the family and any of their funeral expenses or anything like that, right? I get all that aspect of it, but that's not what these GoFundMes ever seem to appear to be raising money for, right? Like they're raising money for the search efforts, raising money for these other things, but like where is
hotels for the families to stay or something like that? That's arbitrary. Never really fully disclosed, I think. Yeah. But in terms of search parties, I mean, all of a sudden you start to have all of these lists of search parties that wanted to be involved in this Riley Strain case. And one of them that popped out to me was the Uvalde Foundation one. And it was started in Temple, Texas, based off of the Uvalde shooting or whatever. But the guy who started it was supposedly one of the first responders or incident command responders for Columbine. And it's like, what? Why?
That's bizarre.
Why is this coming? But I think he got in trouble because he was trying to investigate something else that happened in Michigan, but was trying to get in on the Nashville one. And I'm thinking, how many groups exist like this throughout the nation that are coming in just to do a search party so they get their payday?
Yeah, there's probably some of those for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and back to the point you made a few minutes ago, Lisa, like with the media attention and on how this has all been different in this one, and how like relative to the GoFundMe's, you were saying like the increase in donations happened to coincide with like the discovery of the debit card. What if you're running these? You're some sort of cult group that is responsible for the murders of these folks, and you're trying to raise money, and you're, again, utilitarian purpose of going to plant the card to make people think this kid drowned, to plant that seed in the whole search party investigation into the circumstances. You're fulfilling that role. You're fulfilling the increase in the amount of money being donated, right? It just seems like, these do seem somewhat orchestrated, right? Like if you have these people that are perpetrating these crimes and then using these GoFundMe's, that's a great way to make sure the donations getting increased. That's a great way to ensure that the investigation is going in the direction you want it to go in. It just seems it does seem very orchestrated to me. And again, going back to this circumstance, the people involved in this social media aspect of the search that we're discussing, they all know each other. So again, it makes me wonder, like, what is really going on here. And I honestly think, let's say this, for example, Riley Strain's case here is getting more media attention. Like we've pointed out, it's getting more media attention than many other similar victims that have occurred in the past. What if there is a group, organization, or a cult behind these activities and murders? Would they want to roll out a disinformation campaign at that point in time? Wouldn't we see more indicators of the perpetrators rolling out some sort of disinformation campaign? And that seemingly is what is occurring in this case. Like, there's never been another case where these people that are playing these important roles in the, seemingly, objective discoveries of these things, like a debit card or something, or personal items or whatnot, moving the investigation along, or deterring the investigation, saying, "Oh, well, I saw this homeless man wearing Riley Strain's shirt, and that way," but that obviously didn't happen because he was found with a shirt on, right? So someone came out to the media, someone inserted that storyline into the media, and again, I wonder, is this the machinations of the network that's perpetrating these crimes, that as a result of the greater media attention, they're having to roll out a larger disinformation campaign and larger misdirection. It's like one big magic show. Because again, I see a lot of the same elements in all these cases. Like, for example, the shirt being worn by the homeless man, that makes people think, well, maybe the homeless are involved. Maybe the homeless did this, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, and again, that's not the first time that's happened, right? That's happened in
Right.
numerous cases where it's been inferred that the homeless were involved. And that's exactly what happened in this case. And I'm not even commenting on why the media is reporting that, but just the mere fact that is being reported. And for example, Todd Geib's case, it was widely reported in the 2 weeks that he was gone, for about 3 weeks, I believe, 20 days. This was Casanova, Michigan, like 2005. He's reported in the media to have been hit by a car and buried in a shallow grave. That's in a news, like that's the headline, right? No different than this one. Riley Strain's like, headline, homeless man has Riley Strain's shirt. It's got vomit on it. So then they're implying that Riley Strain was super drunk, but he may have been inebriated. He may have been drugged, but I don't see a man puking in those surveillance videos. So again, they're inserting this misinformation into the entire.
How do you know the bum didn't puke on it?
There you go. Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, but once again, there is no bum there because he had his shirt on. So like the whole narrative was fictional.
Yeah. So it's
I mean,
interesting.
for that degree, they could have just had a headline saying UFO kidnaps and abducts Riley Strain. You know what I mean? Because it would be the same difference. They have no evidence in which to support any of the claims. So why even printing the article to begin with? Other than it's sort of misdirection of the matter.
There was another thing, like from the destination where he left the bar to where his last phone ping was, it approximately takes people 15 minutes to walk that distance. I'm not, again, this was just something I read, and that apparently Riley made it in 11 minutes. And so if you're inebriated, I didn't know you could power walk. I mean,
no kidding. Yeah, I mean,
11. That's interesting.
He's doing it faster. Yeah, it seems to imply that he has his,
And when he came in contact with the cop, he didn't seem
that's a good one.
inebriated.
Yeah,
I was gonna bring that up. He didn't see. I mean, that's
a good point. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, it's a good point.
I mean, he
Even like made a statement like, "Oh, I'm good" or something like that, or "No thanks." He made some statement to the cop, right?
Yeah, I think he asked him and you or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
even another thing, I didn't get into it too much. It's something I did want to bring up. I wasn't even going to pull up the slides. Well, I had pictures. I didn't even make slides for it. But something that does come up with Texas when we get to it that I found kind of started to show up. I didn't start looking at other places around there, but when it came to that bar, I was trying to look it up, and it's under TC, wherever that is, restaurant, whatever. Even just trying to find that there is companies in other states. The one there isn't active, but like even the address for that was at like 305, not at 301, and 305 is like another place called Tequila something or whatever. It's like another bar. So like I'm assuming, even from things I looked at on Visipedia, there's like that person owns more than one of those places around there. That was the same thing going on with Texas, and it's just if you got a bunch of people that are pretty much running the same area, and then just my opinion, you see masonry and their symbolism is pretty predominant in that area. I would just question: is there? And I'm not saying the Masons are purely for this reason, but could there be organized crime, possibly even like hidden under the name of masonry, going on over there? So like it doesn't even have to necessarily be deaths. It could even be like some of those addresses. I think like 301. When I did go run it, I mean tons and tons of other businesses pop up for 305. So like in my opinion, there's probably like shell companies I was looking at. Because there's like 8 of them or something like that. Like what's
that's
going
the
on.
address of like one registered agent, and like they have like a bunch of different businesses.
Yeah, or there's other.
Like,
There's like I think there was like 3 different names for like 8 companies attached to that same address. And shit like that just starts to seem weird, especially when you start Googling these companies and nothing shows up for them except for like, business sites that are listing that they exist. There's nothing like, there's no website or anything even popping up.
Right.
So sometimes I question those, are these even,
for good reason. Yeah. For
good
reason.
Yeah. So and then especially with TC having a rap sheet, that's another thing as well. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, but like seeing that a lot with, I've seen that with secret societies as well. And like even with the Texas stuff, you'll see tons of that. You'll see like secret societies even popping up. But I do wonder, is there actually like just legit organized crime going on? Anyway, regardless, with that kid's story, it definitely looks like it probably, if I looked into it as much as I did with the other shit. It has to be. Something's going on, I think.
It wouldn't surprise me, especially when you're talking bars, the control of alcohol, the distribution of alcohol. I mean, it's always been kind of within the sphere of organized crime.
Yeah, the Texas one, you'll have cops, judges, energy people, lawyers. It's just like, what the fuck? Cub Scouts. All these weird, just...
It's an odd one, right? Cub Scout meeting at the bar.
It's just like, I don't know. It's like, and then this is where I was getting, kind of when you start seeing stuff like this is when I had even started wondering, and we were talking about it prior to going live. I mentioned the Zodiac Killer. I think there might be one called like the Tarot Card Killer or something like that. And one other person, I can't remember the person's name, but like Delphi, I think is even like another example. Like their first 1 or 2, some of them maybe 3, but I think most of them, the first 2 descriptions didn't even really match the person that they ended up supposedly getting, or that they ended up thinking was really the person at the end. And if you want to have people that like you might know somehow through some way, but like you're not always calling each other and you're not known for like hanging out, but like you do come across each other maybe in different ways that is secretive. I could see you having like relationships with people that isn't known publicly or would be known really at all unless you're being followed, I guess. You know what I'm saying? So like I could see how like, so tomorrow call up and say that you survived the Zodiac Killer, and when you're talking to them in person, call up the cops, tell them you survived the Zodiac Killer, and give this description. And you'll be famous. for a day. Just act, just
Yeah.
act serious.
I think that's very plausible. I think kind of like crowdsourcing of these
Christ.
crimes. It sounds like.
Well, and there seems to be a trend with this crowdsourcing, or maybe like a murder for hire or procurement for hire. You see that we kind of talked about something this morning about actual crime that was put out on ABC 2020 that I had never even heard of, that connects Austin to Nashville. And he hired people to kill.
What was that?
So not to get too much into it, but so there was a very famous person living in Austin, very wealthy or whatever. He was getting, I guess, extorted. He had, I guess, had services with an escort, and I think she ended up, with her boyfriend, ended up trying to frame him and saying, "Give us $25,000, and or we're going to show this evidence to your wife." He hired a security firm to do some sort of background check. That firm hired another firm to do a situation rep. And then they found who it was. That security firm went and told this guy and gave him a price of $60,000 a person. And they went ahead and went through with it. And that couple died.
Wow. I kind of thought that's where you're going when they started recontracting out the security check.
And it's interesting because it's like how that Austin and Nashville, I mean, how connected that was. And you start to wonder, is this happening all over? Because remember the whole Silk Road thing. I think we had the discussion a while back where, people were asking for favors on Silk Road. And you didn't even know. Oh, nice.
Yeah, and the feds. I didn't even know who the fuck he was. Somebody told me after the fact. They're like, oh, yeah, that dude that was like blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't.
Oh, Ross Ulbricht?
Yeah, they're like, oh, there's a Silk Road dude. I was like, the fuck knows, man. Like, I'm worried about myself. I'm really not.
No kidding.
Yeah. I just got like.
I mean, there's obviously a network that exists for stuff like that. Silk Road's a good example, Lisa. Yeah, there is a network that exists where folks are certainly engaging in some criminal, networking of sorts, regarding drugs or murder for hire, what have you. That's obviously not the only environment that occurs in, but it was certainly a high profile environment, including the feds. The feds were even involved in some of those activities on there.
Yes, yes, they were.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, I'm of the mindset that there's an intertwined network of cult groups that do these kind of that are happy to work amongst themselves, just kind of underneath the normal layer of society, the surface level of society, and where it's not necessarily, folks who aren't in that network of cult groups, they're not. It's not, they have no idea these things are going on. It's not visible to them. But like within that group, within that network, I think conversations like drug networking, murder for hire networking, I think that's like far more like water cooler conversations than folks not in that network could even imagine.
Right.
That's
exactly.
There was even another thing too that was coming up a lot. I don't want to give up too much, but like I was even coming across a lot of companies that like was associated like somehow through like the bars or the if not so much the bars, the law enforcement people who were in charge when these cases happened. You have a few of them that all have like some sort of company that has to deal with like hiring ex-cop or military people for things. And it's like, I don't know. It's just like you just never know. What does that job what could those jobs be?
Well, I mean, you kind of chuckle at that, but there, even regarding Smiley Face Killer victims, there have been law enforcement officers working in security guard, off-duty detail security positions that have seemingly been implicated in the disappearance of some victims.
Yes,
there's I think at least two or
Chris
three.
Jenkins comes to mind in Minneapolis.
And I was like, yo, what is up with and that was like kind of weird shit. There was times when me and Lux covered, I think, the Moose Lodge and maybe like the Shriners and the Jesters or something like that. We did come across like one of them was like some tactical like company. And it was like, in like the closet basically of like some other building. When we like were trying to figure out like 301 was inside 300 and it even looked like basically a closet in this fucking church or some weird shit.
Doesn't seem suspect at all,
it
does
was
it?
like some like Patriot tactical thing, and I was like, yo, what? And you're looking at this site and you're like, what do you need? Like, what do you need this for?
Yeah.
Mail order mercenaries.
What the yeah. It was
That was
basically
cool
right
tones.
for that. It just wasn't using that word. And you're looking
Right.
at it, I'm like, why the fuck would I need your services?
Exactly.
And
They
like,
were having a
how
sale
do
at
you
Tactical
trust
Gear.
doing something like this online? Like, oh yeah, let me click. Let me start picking at things to choose at. Like, I'm gonna call this. Like, how do you even start this process?
Right.
It's just so weird.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm sure places like again, we're kind of joking about it. I'm sure like organizations like that do exist. Like, I mean, it would not at all surprise me that there is something like that, where like they have like a seemingly benign name, Patriot Tactical, and they're some sort of mail order mercenaries for hire, and their office is literally like a closet in a building. Like that makes a lot of sense to me. I fully expect something like that to actually be a thing.
We even had somebody that was like, I think, showing up on like a lodge. There was like people's names that were coming up, like registered people, whatever, on lodges. They had like one of their addresses, like went back to like an apartment complex, an apartment that was a crime scene cleanup. It was a company registered to that apartment complex. So
Kinda
like
like the guy in Idaho?
when I've seen shit like that, when I bring up the whole Idaho 4 crime scene cleanup and how that goes back to just a plot of land and no building there, I start to wonder what the fuck is really going on here.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
No,
I've
that's a
seen
good point.
people in secret societies attached to a piece of property that's crime scene cleanup in a fucking.
And again, if you're part of the club, no one's gonna even if people ask questions, nothing's gonna come of it. It's all gonna be just swept under the rugs because there ain't something ain't right about that Idaho crime scene cleanups operation and their registered
a piece of land with
business.
like, I think, a lake on it.
Yeah, exactly. I
think
we determined the actual business was underwater.
And that was like another dude.
That was the only option there, right?
10 other companies. It's like
there's no building.
Really, these 10 companies real?
Yeah, right.
I've even brought this up.
There, yeah.
I know this is like a lot of like this is like really kind of like spitballing ideas, but whatever. Sometimes when you start, like, I've looked at some of these people into these cases, when you get these people that have like a lot of these, like, I say shell companies, they have all these companies listed. And like, I have even said to, I think I said it to Lisa, I was like, how do you know these things aren't like something like, I'll spend $500 to open up LLC because somebody's going to pay me $50,000 for a hit or for a job or something. And then I just wait a year or two and just say, I went out of business. Fucking, you know what I'm saying? You're probably not going to get looked into for that. You know what I'm saying? They'll just be like, it sucked for him, because normally it's just average anyway for the first year or two to expect a loss with your own company. For the IRS, they won't even bust your balls. It's expected. So like, could you just open these things up and then like you could even move it to somewhere else and then like fucking, I donated it to charity and it's like the Shriners fucking shit. Who knows? Like, could you even use these things just to move around lumps of money for certain payments, maybe, or whatever?
Sure.
It's just weird.
If they don't have a register, like if they don't have a physical address and they don't have like a
and you don't
like
need
a
one.
business that's like, yeah. I mean, like, what other purpose are they existing for? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at that. Desert Rain even remembers. See, I'm not pulling it out of my ass. She even says she remembers when I showed the crime scene business.
Nice.
It was really weird. I think that was like a Moose Lodge, maybe, or the Shrine or something. Yeah, it was just like, this is weird.
Yeah. And again, I think it's important to note when like looking at those kind of organizations, those fraternal orders, the secret societies, I don't think it's like any one organization. Like, I think whatever this network is that operates through they operate through these different organizations as opposed to like taking over like the whole organization, right? Like, so like in one city, they may be operating through a Moose Lodge. In another city, they may be operating through an Elks Lodge or or a Rotary Club, right? In another city. Like, I just think a lot of these organizations exist to be co-opted for various, nefarious purposes. And I think that, there's some of that crime scene stuff. Yeah, that seems to fall within that kind of description of activity.
I mean, again, like, I think possibly like having these like connections and stuff, I think is also what helps create these stories. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you know like these TikTokers weren't like somehow involved in some group that was associated? They could. That's again what I'm getting at is like you could have these relationships that you wouldn't even know that exist, and everybody just has their role and pop. They're supposed to. You know, and I do think that area is like, just in my opinion, I do think it's probably riddled with legit organized crime. You know, it's not hard to like pull off. Like, I mean, even when I went to prison, I was like fucking doing some outlandish shit, and it's just like, it's not hard to like have like a spider web to make your business run. Like me, I mean, I was fucking retarded, but like I was making my stuff, sending it to someone else. They were sending out the orders. I had money going to other people who then would take the money and then mail it all like me. It's just, it was a spider web to finally get back to New York. And I'm like, fucking, you know, I'm half an idiot. You know what I'm saying? So if I was able to pull that off, what do you think a bunch of like intelligent people that come together and have money, what do you think they can pull off?
I think there's a strong undercurrent of organized crime with all the Smiley Face Killer stuff. Because in my opinion, the cult that's doing these murders, it's perpetrating these crimes, they fund themselves through drugs, guns, and sex, just like any other organized crime element does. So I think that is a strong undercurrent here within any of the Smiley Face Killer stuff.
Those are the top 3 things that sell the best.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
and you brought up in the previous conversation, I think Lisa was the last conversation, that there very well could be extracting sperm and stuff like that from some of these victims to further fund their organized crime. You know, is another element of organized crime within the victimology of the Smiley Face Killers, because again, you're dealing with, you know, the top tier of, you know, what folks are going to pay for sperm within the kind of the STEM, the science, technology, and, you know, engineering, medicine, you know, victimology of these Smiley Face Killer victims. So I think that's another element I wasn't really considering before, but it's another element that needs to be tossed into this organized crime soup of the cult that is perpetrating this, because again, it seems to be they're very diversified in their revenue streams.
Yeah.
I think so.
I mean, that's even with Texas. I mean, that was the thing that weirded me out, that I started wondering, like, it may not even have something to do with the cases that we're looking at. It's just I started seeing crossovers between like the Shriners, who they do have a hospital. You know what I'm saying? They do have vans. And then, like, you know, fucking an animal hospital that's associated with Best Friends, like all of these things in the vicinity. You just have to start wondering, like, if there was something going on, like, it could be easily covered up, because you look like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing in broad public, you know, broad daylight. I'm not gonna think of a fucking Shriner van or anything that looks like that going down.
If you don't look suspect and you don't act suspect, no one's going to think you're suspect.
I mean, that's even when I was
yeah.
even, like, you know, joking around. Who knows how it happened? But like, even with the stuff with Gilgo Beach, I was saying how, like, there's stuff with the Rotary Club that comes up down with Texas, but Gilgo Beach, if you look into it, the Rotary Club helped put the sand there and helped like add more sand. It's just like, you know, it's just, I could see how maybe the bodies got dumped because people would look like that they were doing what they're supposed to be doing in broad daylight. You know, it's just dumping sand off of the body underneath. Like, who the fuck knows? You never know.
Yeah, certainly.
I think a lot of organized shit. No lie, I think is very much like, I always bring it up, Ocean's 11, which is where I think the magic and even like where you kind of get into like CIA mindfuckery type shit is, and what I think is like even what's going on with the true crime. You're being spun a reality, but it's not real. And
exactly. Yeah. That's a good point. That's good. I mean, that's a good example.
I mean, if you really want to think about it, that boils down to the whole fucking. I'm going to pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, we have these musicians' distractions going on with the Smiley Face Killers, from the Riley Strange's shirt has been seen on this homeless man to, hey, we found his debit card over here. You know, these are all different distractions of what's really going on. They are producing a reality that is not reality.
I mean, even we had we were on a guy's show, and then I think after this, if you don't mind, we'll probably just wrap it up. We were on Daniel Christos's show, Ballbusters, and he had a guy on from University of Idaho, actually, and I even brought up Kohlberger and everything. He had a professor from there that had wrote a book about Agent 666.
Richard Spence?
Yes.
Yep, that's him.
Oh, nice. He's the former head of the history department there.
One thing that
the only reason I know that is because I looked into the history department, because the teacher that's suing the TikToker is the current head of the history department.
See, that's really interesting because if you like listen to a lot of things he said in that interview, I do think he even tells you should question history. Like I think he was kind of like saying that
He
blatantly, which is
opened
really
with
interesting
that.
that he said that.
He
Considering-
opened with that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Check that out.
Pretty
Yeah.
much saying history is like written the way somebody wants you to believe it.
Yeah.
But like he was even saying, stuff with Crowley, and then like I brought up the Idaho 4 real quick just to see if you'd say
Nice.
something about it.
He shared his
And,
opinion on some of that stuff. The Idaho 4.
Well, what I got
No.
out of it, which I thought was interesting, because he did say like two things that I found interesting. One he did say, which I do believe, he said there's a lot of bullshit out there that like people are like buying, like just a lot of dumb shit. But like he did say, I'm pretty sure, if I'm correct, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa. He say something about the fact though that he did find it weird that like there are people's dead and no reason why. Like he was like even getting at how like the story is just very blah and there's no answers.
Yes.
And then which I think he was making it sound like it's shady, but like what he was getting at, like kind of with Crowley, that he even touched upon with this, a lot of stuff with Crowley, you were given some just basic facts that kind of sounded outlandish or crazy, and then we used the rest of the public's imagination to create whatever story they want to fucking believe. And he's even said, what I was getting at, what he was saying is that this is kind of like you're going to create, I think it's something along those lines where such the little bit of things that we have to know about the case allows people to actually peddle their bullshit stories because there's really no much framework around the story. It's kind of open.
It absolutely does, yeah.
He was saying something about some of the bigger true crimers that they were purporting some sort of something as a fact, and it wasn't a fact. He goes, if they would just to show up and walk the distance, they would know that what they're saying is wrong. And then he goes, and then you have actual things that have happened that no one's questioning.
Yeah.
So I think in essence is what he was trying to kind of allude to is that there are, things that should be questioned, but just no one's questioning them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or it's, I think, like even part of it.
That's fair assessment. I can't imagine you'd say a lot because. What was that?
No.
I wasn't saying I can't imagine you'd have a lot of opinion on it because I assume the University of Idaho is still paying his retirement checks, or the state of Idaho.
I'd assumed I wasn't going to get much out of him anyway, but like
the University of Idaho is deeply involved in the narrative production with it surrounding the whole murder, so got to take that into consideration, I guess. But no, I'll have to check out that interview. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah, the guy was an interesting dude. I was pretty impressed with the work. I mean, I think he really showed a good, I guess, in the time that he had, good evidence that, in my opinion, which I've always believed, that Crowley was intelligence. And pretty much at that point, and you have to actually understand there's Edward Crowley and an Aleister Crowley. One of them's probably a character, and like how much of him was, how much were they actually the same person? Did they become the same from playing him? But like, if you have an occultist who's also in intelligence, in my opinion, you have to question everything. That's just my opinion. How are you going to believe everything at face value? In my opinion, how are you even going to ask an occultist to even be intelligence? Because I don't think they're going to tell you everything anyway.
I was actually wondering, are there occultists that aren't, or are there intelligence agents that aren't occultists? In my mind, the two go hand in hand. But from what you're describing, that it shouldn't really be considered that way.
You'll write some ciphered piece of work, you'll send it out to someone else, or you'll publish it.
Yeah.
And so then what the fuck was really going on, and you'll tell whoever you're working for probably whatever they need to know. Like, I'm sure
you're describing how I perceive intelligence agencies, or I like to call them lack of intelligence agencies, because they don't ever produce anything. They just all kind of investigate themselves and create more and more problems amongst themselves. But that's kind of that's how I perceive what you just described. Yeah. That's kind of, occultism is intelligence. That's the way I look at it.
Yep. All right, so I think we'll end it here. We got a killer live. I haven't actually seen numbers like this ever. I was actually got a little sidetracked when I saw that. Yeah, and a lot of people on the chat too. That's what's up. That was really some really good stuff. Thank you both for jumping on. Unfortunately, William Ramsey didn't make it.
Yeah, wish you
We
could.
were trying to do something earlier. I didn't think it was going to work out for him, and then when I was going to go live on my end anyway, I think he had somebody on, so it didn't work out. Whatever. But I'm sure we'll get him on eventually again soon. Especially when we're done with our Smiley Face Killer stuff, we should actually have him on and talk about that stuff. I think all of us that could be an interesting discussion.
Yeah, nice. That was a good conversation last one. Yeah, that was
yeah, for sure.
Stuff.
And like I had mentioned at the beginning, for people that are still listening, if you caught the footage from Nashville, again, hopefully within a few weeks, me and Headless and Lisa will be covering that. We'll be covering like the history of the buildings, and me and him will kind of be covering the art again. And again, like he's very good with the symbology and the Greek stuff, so he's gonna have extra stuff to bring to the table that I couldn't. So keep an eye out for that. Hopefully within a few weeks, we'll be able to go live and do that or something like that. I don't know. Oh, yeah, actually, I think I might actually try to drop that as like almost like a real documentary. So
Awesome.
hopefully it'll be in 4K so you can watch it on your TV as well. And will actually look decent. So yeah, we're gonna try to do that. Yeah, thank you everybody who jumped in the chat. That's what's up. I was kind of thinking that this might have done well for a live, so I figured I'd go live. And tons of people in there, and tons of people in the live too. That's what's up. I really appreciate it. JJ, real quick, do you want to let everybody know where they can find your stuff?
No, Nick, Lisa, appreciate the invite. Talking Smiley Face Killers, I'm always happy to come back and talk the subject. So, yep, JJ Vance, host of Operation GCD podcast. Just, I'm sure my link sure will be in the show notes, Nick, right? So,
yes,
talking Smiley Face Killer stuff on my podcast. A lot of the similar conversation we've had today regarding cult history and cult groups of America, you know, that sort of thing. Some true crime stuff, the Idaho 4, you know, these type of topics. But yeah, great conversation as always. Look forward to the next time we can, well, as much as I can look forward to the subject, I look forward to the subject the next time we can get together here and talk Smiley Face Killers. So yeah, good, good stuff.
I think if things go well, I'm hoping like 2 Fridays from now, whatever it is, 2 weeks from now, if things work out, I think all 4 of us will be ready to possibly record. And I was thinking about maybe trying to go live for the first 1 or 2, just to you know, what everybody's palate on the topic. You know, because I'm first. Yeah. I'm sure
this is with BD. With BD's going to join us. Yeah.
Yeah. She's going to do the crime charts. Yeah, the birth charts on the crimes and stuff. Yeah, it's going to be.
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah,
I'm thinking 3 to 4 episodes. It's going to be a deep series. And the funny thing is that, you know, you were saying before, you know, I am also a big fan of this topic, but I'm going to be totally honest with you. I think by the time we're done recording it, we'll probably all be done talking about it for a while. I was even told JJ, I was like, I think I should be done by like the middle of this week, because like I'm actually getting burnt the hell out on it now.
Yeah, I hear you. It's only so much burner you can take.
Because you know there's something there, but it's just like, yo, I'm just like, I'm tired of just like going down rabbit holes.
No, I hear you on that one.
Yeah. But yeah, so people keep an eye out for that. Hopefully within a few weeks, we'll be able to go live and kick that series off. Yeah. Oh, Lisa, do you want to let everybody know where they can find you as well?
Absolutely. Twitter, Solis Lisa, and Instagram, Lisa Solis.
Thank you very much, Mad Scientist. I appreciate all the work that you both brought to this episode. That's what's up. Yeah. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.